Welcome back to our first virtual Internship Showcase, segment 5. If you're joining us for the first time, in this, our last segment, I promise you will see 6 very talented students who will share their experiences at Scotiabank, RBC Capital Markets, and Canada Life. Let's get started. First up is Yiling Qi, who worked as an analyst and financial engineer on the global analytics and financial engineering team at Scotiabank. Please join me in welcoming Yiling to the stage for our first presentation in this segment.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Yiling. Welcome to the MMF Internship Showcase event, and I'm happy to present you guys with my internship last term at Scotiabank. So I was working under the big department called Global Analytics and Financial Engineering last term. And in short, it's called GAFE. And this big department is responsible for maintaining a variety of quantitative tools used by traders. These models include pricing models for rates, equity, credit, commodity, and foreign exchange, also the initial margin model. And they can also be used for risk management purpose, including CCR, market risk, VAR calculation. And during my internship, I was lucky enough to have the chance to work under 2 big teams, the equity team and the foreign exchange and commodity team. Let me briefly introduce what I did in the 2 teams. So for the equity team, I was involved in a very big project called LIBOR fallback. As most of you have already known that the financial industry is right now undergoing a very important project to transition from using LIBOR to some other rates as a reference rates for many products. For example, in US, they're transitioning to the rate called SOFR. And this transition can influence the pricing for many products because the discount curve and the forward curve will reference to the new rate. So my responsibility is to test the impact to the change of the market value for a lot of deals if we parallel shift one basis point down or up for the interest rate, and that is called DV01. So in terms of the testing, we have an internal system that contains all the real deals we booked, and the system incorporates the C++ library for pricing different deals. So we just do the testing by changing one of the product parameters to see the mark-to-market value impact. And in this process, I wrote the shell scripts to update the forward discount curve for deals from various books, and I updated some Python code to generate the report that summarizes the mark-to-market impact and the row impact for all books. The second part I did in the equity team is about documentation review. And I mainly updated 2 documentations. One is for European equity option, and the other one is for local volatility calibration. And that part just requires extensive amount of research because in the documentation, it refers to a lot of external mathematical paper and the models contained in the paper. So I have to first understand the mathematical formula, and also I need to do some derivation myself and to validate all the formula contained in the documentation is correct. And the documentation should be based on the US standard, the SR 11.7 standard. And speaking of the foreign exchange and the currency team, my main project is to develop 2 models for the European options valuation, and by taking the foreign exchange rate into account, because the underlying asset might be from foreign countries. So I built the Haskell model and the quadratic local volatility model. The quadratic local volatility model just assumes the local volatility parameter to be a quadratic function of the stock price. So we use the Haskell model as the benchmark and compare the values with the quadratic local volatility model by increasing the steps of the simulation and to see if the 2 values can converge to each other. For this, because this project is about model development, so of course we use the Git command a lot to push our new changes to the main repository. And if it is approved by the manager, it can be used as the production version of the model. Yeah, so that is most about my internship, and I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Yiling. Now, before we move to questions, I would like to include a quote from your supervisor, Wenbing Kong, who said, Yiling is energetic, he works quickly, and he clearly understands the requirements of the very complicated projects he's worked on, which involved stochastic models and Monte Carlo functions. His strong math, analytical, and coding skills are the most important contributions he makes to our team. So that's very nice, Yiling. Okay. He couldn't join us today. And so we open the floor for questions. If you have a question, please use the raise hand button in the reactions tab. Turn your camera and unmute your mic. We'll bring you on stage for your question. You can also type it into the chat and we will read it for you. My question to you is, which part of your work do you find the most interesting and why?
I would say most of my work is fairly interesting, but if I have to pick one, I have to say it's the model development project that I worked under the foreign exchange team, under the foreign exchange team, because for that project, I would say it's a very typical pricing quant kind of work. Asked me to use C++ to develop the two models, the Hessian model and the quadratic local volatility model. That requires a lot of research because I have to know what the formula I need to use for this project. And one thing I found really interesting is that I think this project really bridges what I learned in the school to the workplace very well, because I still remember for the first term when we have the pricing theory course, we were asked to build a Hessian model using Python. And now in the workplace, I just did a similar thing, but instead I built the model in C++. And I also learned how to import all the input parameters, all the input data from the bank's internal system, and build a function and output the function into Excel and do all the testing. So I just found this project to be very comprehensive, and I learned a lot of things from it. Yeah.
Very good. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we move to the next presenter, Elise Sun, who worked as a credit analyst in wholesale credit risk at RBC. Elise?
Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Elise Sun, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to share my experience in working with RBC as a credit analyst for the past 4 months. Also joining me today is my mentor, Radu Dragomir, and then my manager, Chetan Maglajur from RBC's credit fund team at Group Risk Management. I would also like to provide you an overview of my co-op experience and discuss the 2 main functions I have performed during my internship. This includes risk rating and adjudication for funds. I will also discuss what I have learned, contributed, and the skills I have acquired thus far. Risk rating entails assigning investment managers and funds a risk rating in order to decide the extent to which RBC feels comfortable in lending credit. Within the fund team, I get a chance to learn about 400 plus investment managers for both traditional and hedge funds companies. This role has helped me to understand how firms differ in size, the different investment strategies they employ, and how they invest. In this role, I was assisting updating 12 annual reviews for hedge funds. The second part of my job, risk adjudication, on the other hand, entails the matching of risk and the potentials for loss when issuing credit to these companies in order to ensure that this transaction is profitable for RBC. I was helping with assessing credit exposures of trading and lending activities. This opportunity provides me with an exposure to see various trading facilities, such as derivatives, future clearing, repo financing, and loans. Besides the policy and the guidelines, I have learned how to adjudicate in terms of portfolio diversification, leverage, and liquidity management. I was also helping some small projects such as single name allocation and updating VBAs to ensure the operation runs smoothly in the team. In closing, I'd like to thank Radu and Shannon again for these amazing opportunities at RBC. This experience has taught me many valuable lessons and skills that I will take with me in my career. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. Elise supervisor at RBC were Chetan Malikarjunaya and Radu Dragomir. Radu is with us today, and I would like to invite Radu on stage to comment before we start the Q&A. Radu?
Hi, Radu here from RBC. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Elise, for the great presentation. Your curiosity and strong analytical skills really stood out during the 4 months you were with us, and you were a pleasure to work with. So thank you very much for all of your contributions, and best of luck in your future career endeavors.
Thank you, Radu.
That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Radu, for joining us. Now we move to the Q&A part of the presentation. If you have a question, please use the raise hand button in the reactions tab. Turn your camera on and unmute your mic. We'll then bring you on stage to ask your question. You can also type it in the chat and we'll read it for you. My question to you, Elise, is what did you like most about this internship?
I would say what I enjoyed the most about this experience was learning the whole investment industry from reading credits. Each company, they use different liquidity and leverage management. And it is interesting to see how their funds assets were affected during the COVID-19 market turbulence when they have received a margin call from RBC.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much, Elise. And now we move to our next presenter, next RBC intern, who is Sophie Wei, who worked as a credit risk analyst on the enterprise model risk team. Sophie, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'm so excited to walk everyone through the program I'm involved during my internship, which is Advanced Internal Rating-Based Approach, short for ARB, for regulatory calculation. First, I'd like to give some background on this. First, I'd like to give some background about this program. RBC acquired City National Bank in 2015, and in 2016, CNB and RBC launched a joint program aiming to integrate CNB portfolio into RBC ARB approach. Before the parameter estimation modeling, I also did some data quality checks, data reconciliation, and also impact analysis to make sure the data is fit for purpose for downstream parameter estimation modeling. I mainly work for the PD parameter estimation. I mainly work on populating long-run average default rate. At the beginning of each cohort year, all the borrower at rating bucket I is created as DIT, and borrower who default in the following 12 months are created as DIT, and the borrower who have withdrawn by the end of year are captured as WIT. After getting default rate for each rating bucket I and for given each year T calculated by the formula here, we sum up the default rate for the respective rating bucket I over the whole cohort years and divided by the total length of cohort years. And also we need to populate the margin of conservatism, which are short for MOC, and all the adjusted margin are listed here. MOC equal to square root of sum squares of individual margins. Finally, we combine the long-run average default rate and MOC to get the final proposed PD. And for the LGD parameter estimation, I mainly work on the following 4 parts. First, I input data quality by data cleansing and populate the defaulted facilities. Secondly, calculate realized economic loss for each defaulted facility. Thirdly, segment each defaulted facility by collateral code in industry sector and borrower authorized amount, etc. Finally, compute long-run average REL, which is a sum up REL of defaulted facility for the respective segment over the whole cohort years divided by the number of defaulted facilities for the respective segment. That's pretty much my sharing about my presentation. Please feel free to bring up any comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Sophie's supervisor was Yiling Qi, and Elaine, as well as her colleague Laura Lin, are in the audience today. So I would like to invite either or both of them to join us on stage to say a few words about Sophie before we start the Q&A.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Laura speaking. I'm from RBC, and Elaine couldn't make it today, so she sent me here to pass on the message. All the stuff that I'm about to say, I totally agree with everything that's written here about Sophie. So comments around Sophie is that she's a very curious and quick learner, and during her internship with us, she did an excellent job, took a lot of initiatives to help us with our data engineering, data quality checks, conducting impact analysis, to identify data issues and code enhancements for our PD and LGD modeling. It's a great pleasure to work with you, Sophie, and we really enjoyed our 4 months together, and definitely looking forward to working with you again in the future.
Thank you for a nice comment, Laura. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. And thanks, Elaine, also. So moving to the Q&A for Sophie, if you have a question, please use the raise hand button in the reactions tab within Zoom. Then turn on your camera and unmute your mic. We'll bring you on stage for your question. You can also type it in the chat and we'll read it for you. My question to you is this the whole process for the LGD parameter estimation? Does margin of conservatism, MOC, still need to be applied compared to the PD estimation?
Yeah, I do think so. I think after calculating long-run average REL, we also need to consider the MOC and also the downterm adjustment, which is downterm REL minus a long-run average REL. So we need to consider all the downterm adjustment and MOC into consideration to get the final proposed LGD. Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Now to the next presenter, Shirley Zhang, who was a quantitative analyst in the front office commodity quant group at RBC Capital Markets. Please join me in welcoming Shirley Zhang on stage.
Hi everyone, my name is Shirley and I worked as a quantitative analyst at RBC Capital Markets during my internship. And just a little bit background about the commodity quant team. The team has 2 divisions, index and commodity R&D, and I was working in the index team. So we work closely with sales and clients to continue delivering new commodity products to our clients in order to satisfy their requirements and objectives on risk and return. And now let's get started. Here's an overview of my responsibilities over these 4 months. So the first part of my responsibility is to construct and build a multi-asset indices and assign proper weights to each underlying asset index using a wide range of measurements such as spot ratio Z-score and realized low return. And in addition to that, I also did an option data consolidation using SQL and KDB to pull out the data from our database. And I also implemented some second check tools for different investment strategies and one FX risk check in order to compare the currency risk from different resources. So all the implementation are done in our existing infrastructure model in order to improve the end user experience. And just before we finalize all the results, there's a lot of back testing to be done in order to support our methodology and to improve the strategy performance. So here's one example of the projects that I worked on during these 4 months, which is called the Cross-Asset Momentum Skewness Project. Since research has shown that negative skewness means a smaller chance of extreme negative values, but larger chance of positive values. So the main idea of this project is to benefit from a low idiosyncratic skewness and positive expected return or Sharpe ratio. So the first step is to construct a multi-asset index with assets in different sectors, such as equity and fixed income. And then we follow the methodology described in the middle of the slide here. So the first is to calculate the idiosyncratic skewness, and second is to segment asset into 4 quadrants based on its characteristics. And the last step is to assign positive weights to asset with negative idiosyncratic skew and positive Sharpe ratio. And after this is done, we back test the index and compare the result with our benchmark strategy. And the last step is to implement the second check tool for this investment strategy and finalize all the results to make sure that the index is ready to trade. So that concludes all of my presentation for today. And please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you. Before we move to the questions, I have actually a message from your supervisor, Charlie Chen, who couldn't be here today, but he was extending his best wishes and also his confidence that you were going to do very well. So he was right. And he also has a statement that he made, which is that, I'll read, Shirley has been a major contributor to our strategy in the projects that she's worked on. One of Shirley's strengths that we found most valuable is her ability to collaborate with people from different backgrounds. We felt comfortable having her speak to traders and quants. She is well suited to a front office role or any role that requires a lot of communication. She also has great Python skills, and we were pleasantly surprised at how quickly she mastered other languages, usually within a day or 2. That's very impressive. Thank you. So moving to the question and answer part of this presentation, if anybody has a question, please use the raise hand button in the reactions tab, turn on your camera and unmute your mic. We'll bring you on stage for your question, or you can type it in the chat and we'll read it for you. My question to you is, what is your top takeaway from this project?
Well, I think my top takeaway is that being able to work in different environments is really important. And you will need to understand your manager's expectation about like any specific task or project. And I also found that like working in the front office is kind of different because front office has a very different working environment compared to others, in a way that front office is more intense and people are more like result oriented. So I think efficient communication is the key to success. And it's also always important to understand the need of others.
Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
This ends the presentations. I can't tell you how proud we are to showcase our students today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I'd like to remind everyone that most of our students are starting their full-time job search now. So if you see someone who would make a great addition to your team, please contact Tracy Barber and she'll help you connect with that individual. Tracy's email address and telephone number is in the chat. We'll also put our social channels and email sign-up form in the chat so you can follow us on your preferred platform. The whole team at MMF has been working on something to make it easier for employers to get to know our students for recruiting purposes. Tracy will now give us a sneak peek at the one-stop shop for hiring MMF new grads.
I just wanted to let everyone know that if you are a user of our sponsors database, where you can be a secret shopper of resumes for our students that are seeking internships, we have something now that's even more friendly for you in terms of recruiting new grads. So what I'm showing here on my screen is what the new MMF new grad hiring portal will look like. As you can see, it's not just a list of student names that are available, but in fact, it shows the last job that they had, what other areas in financial mathematics career they're interested in, and for your convenience, an availability start date. So some of them are quite anxious, they're ready for work on the last day of class, but others are understandably taking a few weeks off before they start their full-time jobs. So one of the presenters that we saw in this segment was Yiling Qi. And let's take a look. Say you are an employer interested in hiring a financial engineer. Well, we know that Yiling has that experience. That was his last job. And here's Yiling's full profile. So you can get to know him quite quickly at a glance. You can see what his certifications are, what his undergraduate degree was. He has chosen just a handful here of his top skills in terms of his technical skills. And then what we've asked each of the students to do is to choose their top hard skill and their top soft skill. As we know, Yiling is a very good problem solver. If you're curious to know what Yiling, how he performs on the job, we actually have a quote from his supervisor that you heard Luis say following his presentation, but that's available now for any employer to look at so you can understand what is the value that this student can bring to your organization. I'm loving this, and I really have to follow up with Yiling afterwards, because something he's proud of that's not on his resume is that he lost 17.5 pounds during COVID by exercising every day at home. And I have to say, I can see it in his face. Now, what he lost, for sure, I found. So I have to find out what his secret is for that. We know that not many or that not all organizations are still reviewing resumes, but we wanted to give you the opportunity to download a resume if your organization is still using them. And Yiling actually has projects on GitHub, so we've got the URL to that there, as well as to his LinkedIn profile. So we're hoping to make this available in a few weeks. And if you would like to be included in this is an access control database. As you can see up here in the corner, I am logged in as if I were an employer. So if you would like to have access to this database and see our new crop of grads, please email me and I'll set that up. If you have been in the past using our sponsors database where the resumes were stored for our incoming cohort in 2021, we're going to be launching something similar, so it'll make it easier for you to be a secret shopper of our interns as well. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And I just want to say how very proud I am of all the efforts our students put in today. I also want to thank very much everyone who, and believe me, absolutely everyone at MMF contributed to making this event super successful today. Thank you so much as well to the technical team, and I'll turn it back over to Luis for final remarks.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you all for joining us today. We highly value our relationship with all our internship sponsors and employers, and we hope you'll stay in touch as we welcome a new cohort of MMF students in August this year, who will then start their internship job search for placement in winter 2022, which is just around the corner. If they're anything like a class of 2021, I expect they will be very much sought after also. I also like to thank the MMF staff, Barinder Sandhu, Josie Valotta, Tracy Barber, Michael Wood for all of their hard work. I want to thank the technology team who helped us put this thing together. It's been a wonderful, fantastic, first ever virtual internship showcase. Again, thanks to all of you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed your time. I certainly did. And see you around.